Thank you for taking the time to join us today on our screencast being presented by Falmouth Public Schools. This is part of our series on teaching and learning within the school district. Today we'll be talking about elementary standards-based report cards and helping parents and guardians and community members get a better understanding of our reporting system. My name is Zach Wadaker. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for Elementary Education here in the school district. And I work with our teachers and principals at the elementary level to ensure that we're providing students with state-of-the-art learning opportunities, and we certainly hope that the report card that we provide to families 3 times per year accurately reflects the learning opportunities that our students take part in. Today we have a few topics that we hope to address. First, we'll talk a little bit about what a standards-based report card is, and we'll have a few slides talking about why we use standards-based report cards. We'll talk a little bit about the traditional report cards that we were probably used to as students with A's, B's, C's, and D's or percentage numbers. And we'll talk about the differences between that traditional system and standards-based report cards, which certainly are extremely popular nowadays. And we'll talk about our Falmouth Public Schools rating system. So if you have a report card in front of you, we'll talk through a little bit about what the different numbers correlate to and what some of the abbreviated letters mean, and we'll talk you through that. Before we begin, I'd like to share with you a couple resources that we use within the school district. There are 2 great books that are out that pertain to standards-based scoring and teaching and reporting. These 2 books are, as I mentioned, we use in the school district with our teachers and with our principals. And we're really excited to start next year with our new hires, the people who are new to Falmouth Public Schools. And we'll be doing some book studies talking about standards-based reporting and standards-based assessments and grading, and really hoping to build the capacity within the school district so that all of our educators really feel comfortable with standards-based grading. So I do encourage you, if you are interested in more information, these 2 resources are available online. You can see on your screen the 2 titles, On Your Mark and Answers to Essential Questions about Standards, Assessments, Grading, and Reporting. I think they're primarily written for educators, but they're written in a way where really any member of the public can understand it. It doesn't have heavy educational jargon. It's a useful tool for members of the public and certainly for families. So first we want to talk about what is a standards-based report card. And a report card, as you know, is just a way of reporting achievement data. So in Falmouth Public Schools, we have 3 trimesters, and at the end of each trimester, we send home a report card or a progress report to share with families how their child has performed that term and what their level of proficiency and achievement is at the end of that term or trimester. A standards-based report card is clear and precise, or at least that's the goal of it. I know some parents and even some teachers may say that they don't feel that's the case. And we're always looking at ways to revise the information on report cards to be as clear and precise as possible. We want to be sure that parents view this as not just a reporting device, but also a tool that they can use to help improve their own child's progress. Typically, there are 2 components to a standards-based report card. First being the content, and second being the performance. So in Falmouth Public Schools, the content would be the information that's typed in underneath usually the heading that says standards, as you can see. This one talks about mathematics, and you can see the different content and the different standards. The performance would be the rating that the child gets, which would typically fall underneath one of the 3 trimester areas. So the content should be the same in each report card per grade level. So every 3rd grade student will go home with a standards-based report card with the content being uniform. And then the performance, or the grade, is what would be different for each student depending on their achievement for that trimester. Question we ask is, why do we use a standards-based report card? We really talk a lot about in-time reporting on a standards-based report card, which is a little different than a traditional report card that uses averages. And I'm going to talk a little more about that in the next slide. But one reason we do it is because we want to give parents detailed information frequently throughout the school year. It gives increased information, and it shares strengths and weaknesses with families. It guides instruction and intervention. So while today's screencast is talking primarily about this tool for parents, it's a strong tool that helps teachers and principals guide instruction and to design interventions for students who are in need of remediation and a little extra support. So a question then becomes, what's the differences in scoring between that traditional report card and a standards-based report card? A traditional report card typically was based on an average of the achievement that the child had during the whole term. So, the teacher would take all the math tests, add up the score, divide it by the total number of tests, and they would get some type of average score between 1 and 100, or 0 and 100. And then each correlating score would be given a letter. So traditionally, anything between 90 and 100 was an A, 80 and 90 was a B, and so forth. In a standards-based report card, this is what we call in-time scoring. So it's no longer an average of how they have done throughout the whole trimester, but instead it is telling you on that date when the term closed, what was the child's ability related to that content. So it's a little different. Sometimes we see, especially at the elementary level, that not all children acquire skills at the same time. And as such, a standards-based report card really lets teachers inform families how a child is doing as of the day that term ends, versus averaging grades, which sometimes when you average grades, it doesn't really give you a clear picture of where that child is that day versus how they had progressed throughout the term. Traditional, again, is percentage-based, whether that means giving a letter or a number. It's usually based on an average of how the child had done all year. In a standards-based report card, it's performance-based. So instead of giving you a number, you see a letter that indicates a certain level of performance. And we're going to talk about the different performance levels shortly. Traditional report cards gave you a content grade. So mathematics, you'd get a grade. History, you'd get a grade. Science, you'd get a grade. In a standards-based report card, it's the content is then broken down into different standards. So instead of just seeing a math grade, the math will then be broken down into different strands of mathematical content. So maybe you'll see numbers and relations, or algebra and geometry. So it's touching upon more than just one content, and that really helps when we talk about being specific with parents. And going back to that example of mathematics, you could have a student who's very strong, let's say at fractions, but isn't so strong at geometry. Well, on a standards-based report card, we can articulate that better by giving different grades or performance levels based on those different strands. In a traditional report card, you may have just seen math. Maybe you saw a B, and that B didn't really tell you, was there overall strength in one area and a weakness in another area? Were they a B across the board? So we feel like this standard grade is more broken down and gives parents more information. And that, of course, talks about information for growth, which is a huge part of the report card. Again, with that traditional report card, just getting an average doesn't really tell you specifically where there is room for growth. If a child received a C in math, that might be a sign that there's a need for growth, but in what specific area of math does that child need some help? In a standards-based report card, we break it down a little more for you. In kindergarten, we use a letters-based rating system for standards and responsibilities. Standards relates to the content that the students are learning, and responsibilities are more their social habits. So you can see the key here. SD is strongly developed, and that's really what you hope to be seeing. And I'm going to use some of these terms as we go through the different rating systems, but strongly developed really means that it's consistent and independent. Consistent meaning that it's happening throughout the school day, and independent means without teacher prompting. The student is actively able to do this frequently and without assistance. Developing appropriately means that the student is doing what they need to be doing. They may not have reached their end goal yet, but they're on target to do so. BD, meaning beginning to develop, um, means just what it says, that they haven't reached their end goal. They might even be a little behind some of their typically developing peers in different areas, and that might be an area for remediation or an area to talk to your child's teacher. An ND indicates that they need time to develop this, so a principal or a teacher might look at this opportunity for some interventions within the classroom for this area. NA, not assess this term, means that it is something that the teacher has not yet covered, and because it has not yet been covered, it wouldn't be appropriate to report on that at that time. M stands for a modified standard, which means the standard that, as it's written on the report card, does not reflect the instruction that that child receives. Typically, you see this for special education students who might be on an individualized education program, which will articulate some different goals that may be set for them during the trimester. As we move into grades 1 through 4, we notice there are 3 different areas for rankings, or ratings, I should say. First is term progress, which uses a number-based system, 1 through 4. A 4 means that they consistently exceed the academic objectives, so they're independently able to demonstrate that they can achieve the content, and not only do that, but they do it at a higher level. So again, this means with independence, that the child can do these tasks without teacher prompting, and that they're independently able to demonstrate their knowledge in a variety of ways, typically at a higher grade level. A 3 means that the student consistently meets the academic objective in that academic category. Again, that means that it's consistent, it's frequent, and it's independent. They don't need teacher prompting, they don't need use of manipulatives if it's math, or other tools that we use in education. They've mastered the skill and they're ready to move on to higher content. A 2 means that they sometimes meet the academic objective, usually through teaching. So again, the student might be familiar with the content, may know how to apply it in limited situations. However, they still need some reteaching. They may need teacher prompting, and they're probably on track to meet that objective with some additional supports. And a 1 means that this child is rarely meeting the academic objectives, even with reteaching. Again, this would be an area for remediation. This tells teachers and the principal that this might be an opportunity for interventions within the classroom and additional support at home. Standards-based report cards understand the fact, or I should say school districts that use standards-based report cards, understand that there's a difference between content knowledge and the effort that one applies. So typically in a standards-based report card, you see effort rankings as well. So a 4, again, demonstrates high effort in work. The student's diligent, they put in their effort. A 3, that they're usually demonstrating effort, and then again down to a 2 and a 1. A 1 being that they're not demonstrating any effort. And this helps parents understand that if a student has a poor score and they have a 1 for effort, that it may not necessarily be their cognitive ability, but it might be a motivation issue. And then our standards ratings, again, a 4 being what we consider the highest, students exceeding the standard. They're demonstrating independence and the ability to interact with the content in a variety of manners. A 3 is meeting standard, which is what you're looking for. 3 is really that par for the course. It's what the students are shooting for and what the teachers hope to see. A 2 is something that the students are working towards. A 1 indicates an area for remediation. NA, again, means that it's not assessed for the term because it hasn't been taught. And an M indicates a modified standard. Our hope with the standards-based reporting system is it's really simple. We really hope to increase the communication between schools and families. We want to provide opportunities to report out on our students and how they're doing, because we understand that it's important to the parents to know where their child has strengths and where there might be areas for improvement. Our hope is that we're being transparent and consistent, that reporting at all of our schools is the same, and that we're being honest with families about where their child is and where there's areas to grow. And then finally, detailed information to improve learning. And that's really our goal every day in education, so certainly it counts with our report card as well. We want to be able to articulate the areas where our students are strong, and then always where there's room for improvement. If you have any other questions about standards-based reporting, I encourage you to reach out to your child's school and speak with the principal, and certainly the classroom teacher would be the best person for you to contact as they know the most about your child. And certainly, I welcome you to contact the Office of Curriculum and Instruction if you do have further questions about standards-based reporting. Again, I'm Zach Wadaker, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for Elementary Education, and thanks for joining us for today's screencast.